figure out to close them. I can go behind it. It's very helpful.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for Leading with Language. I am Erin Engstrom. I'm an Associate Creative Director here at TMP.
And I'm James Holland. I'm a Creative Director.
And today we are going to go through our campaign for GXO Direct and talk about kind of the copy-driven approach that we have to the creative here. So, question, how do you 10x performance for CTR and CPC compared to industry benchmarks? Well, hopefully we will reveal that answer. Hopefully. So GXO, who are they? They are a leading logistics company here in the US, well, actually globally. And GXO Direct is a new product offering that they have. GXO has historically serviced enterprise level brands, and GXO Direct is more of an accessible, affordable offering. So with the GXO brand, we've identified them as being precise, competent, agile. Orange has been kind of an accent color for them. And with GXO Direct, we're kind of moving that into the forefront a little bit more and adding that gradient to kind of, would you say, add a level of agility?
It adds movement to it. Also going like punchier on color and less minimal actually makes it seem a little bit less expensive. That sort of minimal white approach, quite a sophisticated brand move. Going big and colorful seems a little more everyday. So that's a move.
So we are, the task was to connect with supply chain decision makers, and they know GXO Direct, or rather they know GXO, but they don't know about GXO Direct. And we want to kind of convey that if you hadn't thought that GXO was within your price point, well, now maybe this offering is. And so we're trying to kind of generate that awareness and down funnel leads. So before we get into the creative, there are some messaging pillars we've established, and they're just kind of these key strategic messages that kind of anchor, I would say, the campaign and make sure that we're kind of conveying the right points.
The important points of the campaign were to boost scalability and flexibility, to get a consistent, reliable film experience, to use technology to increase end-to-end visibility, and to take reverse logistics from cost center to profit center. And Erin will talk through those four later. We'll get into execution.
Yeah, and just, sorry, can we go back to that slide?
Yeah.
I think an important point here to make too is kind of distinguishing between messaging and copy. So like these are not copy, right? But these are messages, and essentially the way you create copy is through concept. The concept is going to drive your approach to copy, but ideally you're conveying those key messages through copy that can differ in tone depending on kind of the conceptual direction that you take.
Yep.
All right, so campaign objectives. One is to increase awareness of GXO Direct in the US. This was just primarily it was entirely a North American-based campaign. And then we are trying to especially connect with those mid-market brands who, again, maybe hadn't considered GXO as a possibility, but can maybe afford GXO Direct. And then also improve the quality of leads that we're driving to hopefully, get them down the funnel and eventually become customers. Okay, so our story. I feel like we're missing an opportunity here to maybe have James read it because everything sounds better in a British accent to an American ear, but I'll take a stab. So people make certain assumptions about logistics. You need your own dedicated warehouse. You need an in-house team of functional experts. You need extensive financial and technical resources to integrate cutting-edge solutions. And without these, you can't fulfill customer and growth expectations. GXO Direct is here to challenge all of that. We offer businesses, big and small, a shared network of warehousing and fulfillment, expertise, and technology, so you can keep up with the rapid development of supply chains and deliver on efficient, reliable, delightful customer experience. Gone are the days of over leveraging resources with the hope that if you build it, they will come. Instead, you can ensure supply and demand, capacity and need, and cost and revenue are all truly in sync. And so this was kind of the grounding story that we had ahead of conceptual development.
Yep.
And the first thing, one of the first things we did before kind of really digging into our creative ideas was to do a competitor analysis, right? And it's always helpful to see what others in the market are doing so we can kind of find that white space and make sure that we're standing out.
And yeah, and looking at these, what you'll see is obviously there's a lot of blue, a lot of white, but also a lot of kind of small detail graphics, shots of warehouses, nothing really compelling from a message point of view here as well. It's all very straightforward. So we want to sort of go in something with kind of a much bigger idea that will actually have more of a point of view and have more sort of longevity. So we really wanted to sort of lead on language to create a really punchy, dynamic campaign that really connected. Started off with a kind of mood board of this stuff. This is what we mean. So as that lead on language, that maybe ask questions, that they poke things. We also really liked the idea of, on the top right corner, looking at maybe three-dimensional type as well, because these are physical spaces, these are things that are being moved around, so you can sort of bring that in and give it a little more weight, a little more gravitas. Typographically led and linguistically led campaigns, something we've done before a few times. So for example, we did this piece of work for Sonova a while back. This is for hearing aids. So it's kind of like a splishy, splashy, pitter-patter, soaking, drenching, dash of spraying, splurgling sound of elation and silliness. It's nice to sort of lead on audio, on language, on not trying to be too short, but actually to sort of enjoy language. We did this recently as well for Amazon, for AWS, where we actually made every single letter out of a different piece of generative AI, so that we actually could just effectively turn that typography into the illustration by itself. That's memorable. There's been times previously where we think actually, sort of in this example, this might have actually worked better without the person. Like, in our opinion, you know, there's actually really interesting going on here with the sort of dictionary definition of work, and this feels like a bit of a distraction. I think sometimes it can be quite hard to take the bold move to not have that person smiling, to not have that extra piece of illustration, and to actually lead on language. But I think when you start to look at the sort of overview, the simple things we were doing here for Nutanix, the directness was the power of it. It felt confident, it feels bold, it feels direct. And actually, sometimes you don't need to add the images. Even on these, I actually think the language in these is lovely, and the images aren't really adding much. Like, it would have been a more confident, more memorable ad to have just gone with the type. So we wanted to kind of learn from that and bring it in. So what do we do? Hail. So we want to apply this to GXO Direct. We're going to show you two routes that we went down, both which were linguistically led, and how we work with them. So concept one was called From Mountains to Molehills. Insight here was that supply chains and logistics can be seen as complex and scary for businesses of any size. It isn't always a straight line or straightforward. So how do we show that speed and flexibility of our offer makes everything easier for them? So the idea here was simple and flexible. So this route visualizes a journey from point A to point Z, or Z, depending where you're from in the world, and everywhere in between. In clever yet straightforward executions, we actually draw from the ideas of kind of visualizing logistics and supply chains. And so what I mean by that is, whenever we do any kind of concept, we will try and sort of pull from interesting things out there, from imagery, from reference points, materials. And we really liked the way that these supply chain flow diagrams were designed, because they're something that anybody in logistics would recognize and sort of associate and understand what that is. And actually GXO themselves had this kind of precise line drawing pattern system thing going on. We want to sort of integrate the two and use that to sort of tell stories, like messages. So the campaign visuals kind of look like this. turning logistics, mountains into molehills. Sort of taking those idea of this, the supply chain, the flow diagrams, but actually, being a bit more playful with it, actually illustrating, in this case, a mountain range with the sun, and leading your eye straight into GXO Direct. So bold, simple, clean, clear, and actually all the illustrative elements really just are there to support typography, to support messaging. We tried this way. We actually showed a few things here. So we tried a few different executions on the website, how it could, live with sort of clever plays on like end-to-end visibility, or reverse logistics, easy as CBA, or how, if you're doing a big number, you could do that sort of diagram thing for numbers. So it's quite a flexible system that allows the whoever's doing ads to sort of do lots of different things, and it feels quite clever and quite sophisticated. That was route 1. And then route 2 was called logistics myth busting. So in this case, the insight is that many businesses wrongly assume they lack the resources to attain robust logistics and fulfillment operations. So what stories are they telling themselves? Like, what are these stories telling themselves that aren't true? That's the question. So the idea here was to make provocative statements with the goal of dispelling long-held misconceptions about what it really takes to achieve world-class logistics. So with this route, we hope to sort of provoke a conversation which was kind of a bit more provocative, establishing GXO Direct as a challenger and a leading voice in overturning ungrounded and outdated opinions. So this one is really where we had this inspiration mood board from, a pokey thing. And we went in with sort of much more bold ads like this. Myth number 27, one size fits all. Adapt to unpredictable demand with a flexible approach, GXO Direct. And we had a tagline here, rethink logistics, which I think actually got dropped. And so this route, compared to the other one, is much punchier, much bolder. It uses that sort of 3D type thing, and actually allows us to make sort of quite fun, playful statements. And for anybody who knows GXO, like the idea of like subverting what you expect GXO to say, actually is powerful. It creates that connection with the campaign. And this was the route they chose. They wanted to refine it a little bit, make it a bit thinner, a little more sophisticated for the final execution. And so Evan's going to talk us through how we took that idea and rolled it through different levels and different elements.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can see, this is kind of the chosen route that they went. One thing that I wanted to add was James designed that 3D font to specifically kind of evoke that physical space of warehouses that GXO Direct does in fact offer. It's a shared warehousing solution. So those letters do that very well. But this message that you see here, I would say is more of kind of an awareness level messaging, as are these, right? Out of sight, out of mind. You can't control the future. These kind of provocative statements that, don't necessarily provide a lot of context on their own. More of that's kind of paid off with the subcopy. But then you can get into kind of down funnel messaging as well, right? And still obviously have that visual connection, forward thinking reverse logistics. There's still a bit of cleverness, right, with that asset title. But here is where we're kind of driving that demand. So it's a little less, I would say, provocative on its own. But, the 3X, the big 96%, those are very attention grabbing and have in fact performed quite well in market as well. So again, these are a couple of asset, e-guide cover titles. We've already seen the forward thinking one, but exceed expectations from click to delivery. And, this is part of our creative concept too, is thinking about what sort of assets and kind of content does a client need? Where are the gaps in what they already have? What are the opportunities to really message in a compelling way to the audience?
I think it's also worth talking about the visual system here, the sort of balance we sort of attained. So we wanted to keep it really bold, but the client asked for these things to feel sophisticated and premium. So the use of like very fine lines or some sort of finer type the little illustrations, adding those little details, they help to counterbalance the sort of boldness of the type, so it feels sophisticated and you get that different levels going on, there's different sort of hierarchies. So it doesn't all feel bold, like that would be too much.
Great. So this is our campaign landing page. As James noted, that rethinking logistics to get dropped as a tagline, but we were able to kind of bring that prominently to the header that everybody's going to see upon landing on here, because really that does kind of get to the core idea of what this concept is all about, is challenging the perceptions that you might have. And then this is another asset that we're pretty excited about. It's an interactive asset, and this is directly playing on that myth-busting concept too, right? So these are based on fears that the client has told us potential customers express to them. They're afraid that if they outsource logistics, they'll lose operational control. It kind of feels like you're putting your life in somebody else's hands. They're afraid of integration, and they think it requires a lot of effort on their end. And in fact, GXO is going to kind of take that challenge away from them, kind of handle it themselves, and they're able to usually be up and running in about half the time that competitors are. And then a lot of companies are going to maybe have some space or warehousing of their own, and they're like, what am I going to do with this? I don't just want this to go to waste. And GXO does have their own, GXO Direct, does have their own solution for that as well. So let's get into results, right? We teased that at the beginning. So apologies, the number has changed slightly. So TTR is now 9x. It is not 10x, but CPC is still 10x, so we kept that, right? It's 10x is a nicer, rounder number than 9x. Viewability 51% better than benchmark. Our paid LinkedIn is killing it. It's the engagement is up over 3x since launch. CTR 18%, and we're engaging some really kind of coveted titles. The types of titles that we were hoping to engage with are actually kind of paying attention to us, so that's great. And then with endemic, we've partnered with Wall Street Journal, FreightWaves, which is more of an industry publication, but a number like over 12 times benchmark in terms of page views. I mean, that's exactly the sort of success that we like to see. And then we've been in market for, I think, about 4 months now. And this is maybe not a perfect measure of brand awareness. There are probably other things that we're going to do post-campaign to evaluate that, but this is certainly kind of one good way to evaluate it. And as you can see, search volume has increased considerably since we went into market.
I think, that's all the stats and things. It's one of the point I'd like to make on the design side of things, which is how flexible it can be when you have a type-based campaign. So when you have ads, that are purely written, all of these had to go fit in all the annoying little formats you get on media, all your MPUs and your white long things, and normally if you've got an image, that's quite hard to make that image work. If you have a short sentence, you just reflowing type, a long line, vertical, in a square, much more practical. You can use the space far more efficiently that way, and the message is always going to be big, it's always going to pop. So I think I would encourage you to think about when you're creating campaigns in the future, don't default to the picture and the person and the smiley person and the graphics. Like, you can, if you have a strong message and you have a good writer, you can just lead on like bold, powerful messages and make that statement to connect, and the results speak for themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I have questions. Actually, I have one comment. I like your Dan, ready for this? Your icon stories. I like the system. Like, it's so simple, and how like on those other ads you were showing like like the movement of something from warehouse to delivery. I thought that was really cool.
Mm.
I'm curious on the like 3D effect. It seems to like change a lot, like where it vanishes or where how dark it is. Is that for emphasis or were there rules around that?
I think it's two things in that. So
Tricky to control.
firstly, this screen's like really killing the 3D effects. Actually, a lot darker
Oh, okay.
on the actual ads. This is the screen version. I think, as like Danny will testify to, it's a little tricky to get it consistent. We're trying to do that. I mean, it's all Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator 3D. It's not like sort of slightly fake 3D. But we wanted it to be sort of subtle, so to give that sense of just giving it a little more boldness, a little more visual interest, but not overpowering the message by being too big. Also, like trying to get it to always, you can't really see it, but it always goes into the center, so it pulls your eye into the myths, so that's really clear. One of the points we made was like if this bit wasn't immediately obvious, you missed the joke. Like it just falls apart for just making negative statements. But yeah, I also like how it's been evolved a bit, so the lines can also become part of the illustration system. It's not always icons. Sometimes you can do more things, and again, Danny's doing good work on that one too.
Just enough simplicity to supplement the big type.
Exactly, it's just a little extra, whether it's backwards or the braid or something. That little extra nod, that little bit of detail, just gives it that level of craft and finish that makes it feel a bit more sophisticated than just putting type straight. We sort of didn't need to do it. It took a lot more time, but it does add something. Danny.
As you said, I've worked on this quite a bit, but really only on the social side. I, have the privilege of seeing like kind of the on-site stuff that's very more like isometric, gray. How do you like leverage the boundaries between those two things, and like what are the rules there, and like how do you like navigate kind of a seamless, break into kind of more online imagery?
Good question. I think some of that imagery came about because that was designed by a different creative. So that was like Adam, who sort of took his own steer on it, and we wanted to, for those elements, when we're doing this, like having big orange bits of text for all of these, or turning these to the orange text kind of wouldn't work. They're too long. It would feel like it's sort of like diffusing the campaign, trying to make it do too many things. So actually, this is actually their own illustration style. This isometric style is GXO style, so it meant that this campaign then integrated into the rest of the site experience more easily. Like if GXO Direct site was just big bold bits of orange type, and then you went to any other part of GXO and you got none of that, that would probably be a bit of a jarring experience. So bringing in parts of illustration style into the site experience just helped it all to be a bit more seamless.
And that's also like refreshing their icons, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And we would sort of lead on the campaign, and then as soon as you drop down past the sort of initial break, it would go much more sort of core GXO, just to sort of make it all feel quite seamless. Because yeah, it's interesting, like thinking about what you design for. Like this is a system that's designed for impact and immediate, punch. So when you're scrolling through social media or your website, it's going to stop you. Yeah. But having this much orange everywhere on a website would feel really draining. Like it would get tiring quickly and kind of boring, because you want to actually spend time with it, not just be stopped by it. So yeah, that's sort of, I guess, it's intentional use of color or lack of color.
I think there's something nice about the brand GXO Direct by name is kind of clear, direct, and simple, right? I would imagine that logistics people are also very clear, direct, and like getting things from one place to another is not easy. But I think they respond well to things that I'm just saying, like there's a nice congruency between the brand, the campaign, and the audience.
Yeah,
that all kind of work.
That idea of directness, like it's very direct. Yeah,
like
that's what it runs through in terms of the statements.
Yeah,
we're not trying to be too nuanced or clever or find an image that's a metaphor for logistics.
Right.
We're just telling you what's happening.
Yep.
That hits the audience, as you say. Yeah, that's a good point. That's why it worked.
Well, and, and you highlighted the GXO Direct brand, right? And I mean, really the original ask to us was to position GXO Direct more as just like this solution offering. but James identified the opportunity. Well, what if we kind of turn this into like a full-fledged sub-brand for you? And that just kind of gives it more opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and that actually came from the pitch. Like when I think this team pitched originally for GXO Direct, one of the client takeaways was they really loved the use of this sort of orange gradient. It felt fresh and different and punchy for them. So sometimes pitch creative goes nowhere. Sometimes pitch creative is used exactly in the ad, and sometimes they like a bit of it, and you sort of pull that through. So in this case, they like the orange grad.
Great.
Cool, nice, simple, straightforward. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.